Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to now. What's something's quite interesting about why I'm doing this because the last time I've actually done a video quite like this was back in part 32, where I went on a tangent for like nearly half an hour about Chris miming making spaghetti because for some reason that was one of the most bewilderingly stupid things I've ever seen anybody do in my life. He didn't even really seem to be doing even when he's miming something, he would rather put something in a microwave as opposed to actually making something out of scratch. He is in his you know how some people like comment saying that in Chris's fantasies he doesn't work. This is kind of like why people complain about stuff like that, is because even in his fantasies where he could do anything he wanted to, fly, read people's minds, actually get to Quickville, he would rather choose to do something half-assed than actually putting any sort of effort into it. However, since I know apparently Gino's going to put up part 54, I believe, tomorrow, because he did this April Fool's Day prank where he retitled every part to Donald Trump: A Comprehensive History, which I found to be quite funny. Chris did not think it was funny at all. So, with that being said, if that part 32, the whole spaghetti thing, I found to be the stupidest thing I think I've ever really seen him do, and that's saying a lot, what I'm about to demonstrate to you guys, if the title is anything to go by, I think this is the most arrogant thing I've ever seen anybody do in my life. You know how about a month and a half ago when I first talked about this, I was actually in tears because I could not believe how somebody could be so irresponsible and about talking about something like that. Well, I'm about to explain to you in more detail exactly why. So, just also, you may want to bear in mind is that a few minutes ago, Chris proudly proclaimed that So, bearing in mind is that Chris somehow believes he's being cured of autism because he listened to subliminal high-frequency tracks. I'm going to make a very strong case about that as soon as I'm done with this part, because it really has to be said, and I'll be damned if I don't have my say about it. I've got to have my say on this. So, can males be born with a hidden vagina minus the uterus? You want my honest opinion? I don't want to sound, arrogant to myself and anything like that, but I've never seen any cases myself. And if I had, that could be entirely down to a 1 in a million possibility of things. Nothing is impossible, but what comes out of Chris's mouth next is beyond comprehension. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what, I got a better idea. I'm actually gonna open up a new tab and I'm gonna try and type this in, because you know what? I'm going to give Chris the minimal of benefit here. I'm actually going to look up as to whether or not that is true or not. I honestly, guys, I don't really believe this myself, because, well, you can't just right, because from my understanding, before I look into this, if I was female when I was conceived, then how exactly does it come to be that when my testicles and my penis begin to form, does my uterus just shrivel up, or does it just grow into something different? That's the thing I'm struggling to believe is that you can't just have both, or when all of a sudden. So let me see. Right, is everyone in female in the room? A human fetus does not develop its external sexual organs until 7 weeks after fertilization. The fetus appears to be sexually indifferent, looking neither like a male or a female. Well, yeah, that's That's kind of what I was thinking about. I was thinking about that myself. Over the next 5 weeks, the fetus begins producing hormones that cause its sex organs to grow into either female. To be honest, I think it's more like, the flip of a coin sometimes, but I'm going to go into this further. Sex determination. Most mammals, including humans, have an XY sex determination system. The Y chromosome carries factors responsible for triggering male development. In the absence of a Y chromosome, the fetus will undergo female development. This is because of the presence of the sex-determining region of the Y chromosome, also known as a SRI gene. Yeah, okay. Thus, male mammals typically have an X and a Y chromosome, XY, while female mammals typically have two X chromosomes, XX. In humans, biological sex is determined by 5 factors present at birth: the presence of a Y chromosome, the type of gonads, the sexual hormones, the internal genitalia, such as the uterus in females, and the external genitalia. Chromosomal sex is determined at the time of fertilization. A chromosome from the sperm cell, either X or Y, fuses with the X chromosome in the egg cell. Gonadal sex refers to the gonads, that is, the testes or ovaries, depending on which genes are expressed. Phenotypic sex refers to the structures of the external and internal genitalia. A human fetus does not develop until 7 weeks. Okay, now we go back to Chris's explanation. Let me think about this. Everyone is female. No, that's not true. It's that... Okay, so from what we discovered is that sexual organs do not begin to determine themselves until they are 7 weeks gone in pregnancy. Meanwhile, let's go with this. When the Y chromosome mutates, a girl to a boy, chromosomes, in my opinion, it doesn't mention anything about mutation, nor do I necessarily believe it comes to mutation. Like, a chromosome doesn't just change its mind. It doesn't just decide to become Y or X on a whim. It either is or it isn't. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I don't necessarily believe, in my opinion, that chromosomes have their own feelings to decide whether or not they can be one thing or the other. They have to be either X or Y, because it's simply how to determine how sexes begin to develop. Okay, so let's get this out of the way. Chris somehow thinks that boys are going to have their minds blown about ill-conceived science that is not even remotely true. And also, if you before 7 weeks, you won't even have a consciousness anyway, so how would you even begin to believe that you were female at all? That's quite an interesting query, is that how do you know at all you're supposed to be a female or a male if you have no conscious reality of it ever taking place at all? I mean, when was your first memories? That's the sort of thing I'm asking. Well, considering the time when Chris was male, his rendition of what he refers to as manly or manliness is extremely misconceived, and his approach is nothing but literally obeying everything that is said on Family Guy or on some other television show. I like to imagine, ladies and gentlemen, and I have my own theories about what makes a man, i.e., like a breadwinner or somebody who stands up. And listen, it's one of those reasons why I take, the term being called an adult very seriously, because from my own experience, being an adult in the adult world basically amounts to not really that much. It's just older kids who have more power and even less responsibility than before. From my experience, there are people who obviously have great responsibility, but it's strange. It's very, very strange. But with that being said, especially in Chris's case, because I would like to say that his autism does confuse his perception of reality, meaning because he explains that his autism is his lens to the world, but it's kind of hard to there are some things I'd imagine are pretty hard to misconceive or miscomprehend. Particularly something that about science, which is something you really have to do your homework on if you're going to, proclaim something like this, because it doesn't make you end up looking stupid. All I'm going to say to that, to Christine's response, listen, I'm just going to make this very, very simple. Christine, you are not a doctor. Because Chris, one, people would have found out about this a lot sooner than you did. Then again, there's nothing to discover because this is simply not true. Because an unbirthable... First of all, so what if there was an unbirthable vagina? For there to be an unbirthable vagina inside my body, for example, I would also have to have, a uterus. I would also have to have a womb. I would also have to have female sexual organs. Because, Christine, let me tell you this right now. Do you think, because I've had plenty of x-rays done in my time, I've had surgery done in the lower regions of my body when I was quite young, I am going to tell you this absolutely now. There was not, nor would there ever be, because it's simply not there, any signs of a unbirthable vagina or access to female sexual organs. Christine, I don't buy your talk. And that's the thing that struck me bad the first time listening to this, is that she says this with the utmost sincerity. She 100% believes just what she's been told. She is that gullible. She will just pick on a whim and go with it. Now, with that being said, I have not seen the Planet Dolan video itself, because there may be something maybe I've perhaps overlooked here, but I don't particularly think it's a good idea to start, looking at science as a wish-fulfilling fantasy. That's my brother. My younger brother is a biochemistry student. I reckon if I showed him this, then he will take both Christine and whoever came up with this concept anyway completely to town and just literally show them the door. My own brother could do that. My 19-year-old brother can do that. And obviously I can't fulfill it in any more, very specific detailing, because honestly, I don't really think there needs to be any more than what I'm trying to convey already. With that being said, there is this next part coming up. Okay, we're gonna go through this one at a time, because this needs insisting upon. Punchline. First of all, Chris, she thinks this is a joke. She thinks she's telling some great joke that's somehow compelling the laws, bending the laws of science completely to your will for the sake of a joke. Because if you're Christine, listen to me. If you're going to start telling people they're going to have their minds blown, but then you go punchline, you're going to make a joke. Let me tell you right now, Christine, I've said this before about your autism tutorial. If you went up to an auditorium or you went to a university and you were going to give a lecture and you did this, they would show you the door, and I don't think you'd ever be allowed back into any educational institution in the entirety of the United States. Probably within the entire Northern and Southern American continent, for all I know. You'd probably be blacklisted from any profession whatsoever if you go around saying stuff like that. Now, that's just, in my opinion, about the punchline bit. But then there's this next part. If every gay male knew about this... Okay, first of all, Christine, let me make this absolutely clear to you. Once again, it sounds like you're just demonizing gay people, thinking they're such willing perverts that they think that the only thing else they need is another hole for someone to fill. Think about how That's like one of those things why I said I was absolutely horrified at this. Christine still thinks that gay males are just basically sex machines. They are dolls, toys to be played with. They think that... Christine, I have a lot of gay friends myself, a lot of gay male friends, I should say. A lot of them have very, very fulfilling, very, very happy, and very, very active lives. And I know this is going to come as a shock to you, Christine. They are not perverts, nor are they addicted to sex. Now, I could possibly see from maybe Christine's perspective of that, considering how warped and twisted her perception of sex is, that somehow she seems as if, like, she at heart is the one who wants this, and the only way to deflect her otherwise parodic fantasies is to start portraying, other gay males as doing this. However, there's another problem with that theory, is that one, Christine has also been noted in the past to, inappropriately touch people to get uncomfortably close, has no concept of, social distancing or personal space. So we know that Christine or Christian had perverted tendencies anyway. And you know what? There are millions of people born with autism, ladies and gentlemen. Not all of them do this sort of shit. I don't even think... Autistic people know far better off than not to do that. I'm telling you that right now because... What honestly do you expect people to say? What honestly do you think anyone would say to that? That's just horrible. And then we cut to this next bit. All they have to do is to cut their taint. Christine is straight up telling people to cut themselves. Have you guys ever seen that the Family Guy episode Brian's a Bad Father, where they just put in a gag where Peter is saying if he was to cut himself, how should he do this? And then Meg responds with, long ways for attention, sideways for results. That line is that whole bit was horrific in literally every single, because one, it's incredibly bad taste. Second of all, I could see where Chris is getting that idea from, because, and I don't want to spoil this, but for people who are watching this, but Christine literally slices open her taint later on in this video, and she nearly kills herself because of it. She nearly dies because of what she did. She's telling, and bear in mind, if that could happen to Chris, that could happen to other people as well. So that's why you do not go around telling people to cut themselves, because you could end up costing people their lives, Christine. How irresponsible do you have to be to start straight up telling people that all you have to do is to cut yourself open and all of a sudden you will have a new hole to play with? I'm once again at a loss for words, because Christine just goes first. Okay, let's just go through this in order. We'll play through the rest of this, because I'm going to take this back like 10 seconds, because I want people to truly understand how absolutely terrified and angry I am, because some things, it takes quite a lot to get me angry sometimes. I suppose really it comes down to like mood and all that. But when you have lines like these, when you hear stuff like that, the only thing I can honestly think to myself right now is, if somebody wrote that down, they should be taken off the internet. They should not have a platform to speak on. They should not be allowed to walk around in society when they're straight up just deciding to tell people to cut themselves open by demonizing gay people, telling people to cut them, telling gay people to cut themselves open, getting bullshit about talking bullshit about science, and finally, Christine is again just reflecting her own perverted desires onto other people so that they in turn can make them sound guilty, because in Christine's view, she thinks that all gay males are just, you know, uncontrollable sex machines. Business opening. I can't help but wonder whether or not the opening was meant to be like a very sly joke at the idea of a vagina opening, or whether or not, you know, because I honestly would straight up suggest that you should not be telling people to cut themselves open by immediately following with professional surgery. How do you get to like the age of 34 and you can barely put a sentence together? So that's on 2 occasions Christine is telling people to cut themselves open, and only once actually to seek professional help. And less if listened to more often with a subliminal track. And you could try opening it as soon as 6 months, as opposed to seeking professional advice if you wanted to undergo, you know, female hormone therapy. If I'm just gonna like remind people again as to what this leads to, and because of what Christine herself did, because she's that completely irresponsible, not only in regards to other people, but what she does to herself. This is what happens. Bear in mind, they say hypnosis wizards. Hypnosis is not a professional form of, you know, turning, you know, hormone therapy. I may as well go to see a witch doctor if they wanted to hypnotize me, or they wanted to I know, cut my penis off with a sharp rock or something like that. They could say that because I could say literally I was no longer male if somebody decided to cut my penis and testicles off, but that just is completely idiotic. You just don't. In fact, that's literally like, I'm surprised that that was not Chris's next step, is that she would not turn around and saying, "I'm no longer a man because I cut my own penis and testicles off." Because let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, if her advice earlier was to cut open your own taint, then why is that idea not completely out the realm of, you know, possibility? Exactly. I'll leave it up to you as to whether or not they actually believe Christine was taking care of herself, because yeah. So, what I was saying before about the idea about this being complete and utter arrogance, because nobody believed in Christine. She thought, I'd imagine that what she did is that in order to prove people wrong and that she was not, crazy, and that her theory was going to be proved somehow, she decided exactly that she was going to accelerate the process by just cutting herself open. As you can already have, as you've already worked out, people thought literally she was going to die because of a past infection that she got, from a taint piercing. And let's bear this. Do you want me to say this again one more time before I finish? Christine tells people, gay males, to cut themselves open because she thinks that gay males are so perverted they will just seek anything to get a rise out of them. Then Christine goes ahead and says that for whatever reason she was supposed to be born female, so she decides literally to take her own advice. I'd imagine somebody, maybe possibly Christine herself, said to take her own advice. And what she did as a result, she did that, and people got so... Because that would have been the response to literally anyone else who would have cut their taint open. Everybody else would have been so concerned for their well-being that immediately they would start telling them, get to the emergency room, seek attention now, because you're gonna die if you don't. Which kind of it begs the question as to whether or not I that's why I think it's arrogant. It's just because I get the impression that Christine just says these things just because she can, or she will just play up any excuse whatsoever to fuel exactly why, because she is that easy to fool. But when she comes out with this, and fortunately I can pretty much testify that absolutely nobody ever took her own advice on this, then all I have to say, just to round up everything else, is that you kind of wonder. I know Chris has said some pretty bad things before, but like I said just before with the Sonic Boom Gate scandal, Christine was not, influenced by trolls during this. She was not really influenced by anything else other than her own desires to become female. And as opposed to, actually going through the right channels or believing, that even if the process took about 2 or so years, that she could just do it herself and then start spouting complete BS on the internet. That is just, again, I think is just horrendously bad. Then it kind of makes you wonder, just honestly, that if Christine had been born female, and if Christine had never been born with autism, then my next question, and I'm going to end this question off with this whole video off with this, is that if Christine was born female and she was not born with autism, do you really think she would say these things? Because I think, autistic or not, female or not, if somebody says and does this type of shit, then they need serious seek serious needs, because I've never been more convinced of anything else in my life than to say that Christine, yes, does have autism. That's been proven by Christine herself, but she definitely has something else. And I'm not entirely sure if it is gender dysphoria. It may indeed possibly can, if gender dysphoria really is, medically certified, because Christine only really decided that when she was like 29 years old, almost completely out of nowhere. That's, well, aside from maybe a few things which you might assume might be evidence enough, but makes you think that, doesn't it? Makes you think, what a good thing is that I'm not stupid enough to cut myself open. And so, with all that being said and done, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize if this kind of like touched a nerve. It's just because I don't like it when, for whatever reason, this kind of bullshit happens. I don't like it when people spout the most unbelievable just self-proclamation, because all of this is just in Krista's interest to make herself look clever and smart and, well, in her words, punchline, funny, if you really want to think, encouraging people to cut themselves open is funny. I'm surprised, literally, she decided that they turned. I reckon if Christine applied for a job to write for Family Guy, they would accept her, because Family Guy material is like scraping the bottom of the barrel now anyway, so that would not shock me. And it took a lot out of me just to memorize myself with what exactly came up. Right, okay, so that, as they say, is that. Take care, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye for now.